Hi, everyone. This time of year, people are especially asking me, Ellen, how do you run in the summer in Florida when it's 90 bazillion degrees and 100,000% humidity? Well, it's actually the humidity that does us in more than the temperature. But I find that the temperatures in the morning when you first wake up here 10, 20 degrees cooler than what they might be in the peak of day. So important to set those clothes out next to the nightstand, even your shoes with the socks inside, a glass of water on the nightstand because you want to drink 16 ounces if you can when you first wake up to get things moving because you want those things to move before you get out the door and not after you get out the door. So drinking that water when you wake up is important for that as well as keeping you hydrated. Um, so running at the crack of dawn, easy to do. People often say, well, when's the best time to run? And yeah, the best time to run is when you can find the time to do it. But generally, over the decades, I've found that it's much easier to do it in the morning and it energizes you for the rest of the day. So, hydration can be in the form of water, but it also can be in the form of watermelon or any kind of melon or any kind of berries, any kind of fruit. Vegetables have water in them. So, vegans often find we don't need to drink as much as our animal eating counterparts because we're absorbing that water on a cellular level. And it's very beneficial for a lot of things, but especially for keeping us hydrated. Something else I try and avoid is the PFA clothing, the forever chemicals. It's mostly not so much the contact with our skin, although it can be problematic as far as autoimmune diseases if you're particularly sensitive. But when we wash these clothes, it gets into the water supply, and that's where most of us absorb these forever chemicals. There are companies now that are starting to market that they don't have PFAs in them. So if you can find them and you have the budget for it, I highly encourage that because going back to cotton is, as we were taught to say at Fit to Run, where I worked before I wrote my fourth book, Vegan Fitness for Mortals, cotton is rotten. It just creates chafing. So there's really no way around that. And so the clothes, as they've developed from petroleum products and they do work great as far as running and not creating that chafing problem, but not so much for the environment. And point number 3 is define your why. Now, many of us have gone to personal growth classes, social awareness, consciousness raising, whatever you call it, and to try and figure out, well, why do you get up in the morning? That is so important, as we found in the blue zones, finding that raison d'etre, reason for living. For me, it was always easy. Mom, aunt, both sisters had breast cancer. I was the youngest in my family, so I had a lifetime to figure out what I didn't want to happen to me to the extent I could control it. A lot of heart disease and diabetes going around with that crowd as well. But we became part of the breast cancer, the BRCA1, BRCA2 genes that are the genetic components of breast cancer now, but only 10% of all cases are genetic as far as breast cancer goes. So even a couple of the cases in my family, they figure were environmentally triggered. So I've always lived my life as if I had the gene and tried to work at ways to avoid that bad baby. But it's been so important for me to race past 50, to manage not only my own expectations, but the expectations of others, because people will come up to me at races and say, oh, you can't run on a vegan diet. And always I've had that rebellious third daughter in me of saying, just watch me, and trying to really create an atmosphere of being able to, not only for myself to feel comfortable in what I do, but for other people to try and do things that maybe they wouldn't have considered because they just thought it's part of the aging process or you can't do that kind of thing after 50, 60, or 70. So it's so important for me because I grew up with my mom taking me to the nursing home every day to see her mom. And she always said, if I get like her, just shoot me. And of course, my mom got exactly like my grandma. Both had major Alzheimer's and didn't recognize people at the end of their lives. Very sad. So running has been a motivator. There have been studies that show that running really does help prevent Alzheimer's from ever starting. So to the extent we can control those things, we do what we can. So people say, how much do you run? It just depends. I went to California to see my daughter, took 5 plane trips, wore a mask on the plane because I knew that the most recent variant of COVID was very contagious, washed my hands incessantly, and I didn't get it past the incubation period of 72 hours or even longer. And sure enough, my boyfriend who went with me didn't do any of that. He gets COVID, and we're in an Airbnb, and on the last day of our trip, I got it. So you can probably hear a little bit in my voice. I'm still getting over that. But you just do what you can to try and beat the odds. I have not run this entire week. I did do a 5K when I was at day 6, so I wasn't contagious, and I think that may have set me back a little bit, or who knows, maybe this is just running its course. And I train as if there are races, even if there isn't one. And that helps to keep me motivated because you never know. I may just happen to ask, as I did this morning, ChatGPT, are there any 5K races anywhere in Southwest Florida tomorrow? And of course, there was one. And I also make sure they're age group awards because I don't like to do races that don't have them because, again, that's part of my motivation. I like to measure how I do. Not against anybody else, but against my past week, my past month, my past year's performance. And I'm keeping track of the number of races I've placed in. It's at 333. That's what those are behind me. So it's, again, just to prove to that person who came up to me at a race years ago and said, oh, you can't run on a vegan diet. I'm still dealing with that. So I generally don't run more than 3 times a week, although when I've had issues like this, I'm out of town, not feeling well, which generally isn't very often, but I will go an entire week if I don't have the time. And the only running I'm doing are 5K races on the weekends. During the summer, I don't put out as big an effort as I might during the winter when it's more competitive and when it's cooler and you just have more energy to do that kind of thing. Other things that keep me motivated would be accountability. You can have a running or walking partner, but I also use my watches. This is the Garmin and my Apple Watch. I toggle between them. Generally, what my experience is that most of my running friends have Garmin's because it really just provides so many more metrics about running. You know, the height of your stepping, the distance of your stepping, all the kinds of things that runners like to kind of obsess about if they have the time or energy. The Apple Watch doesn't stay charged as long, but it's got a nice big screen, although Garmin is definitely competing in that area as well. But, I was using music, and the Apple Watch was easy because I have Apple Music to upload that and just run without a phone, which was really, really delightful. And I still run without a phone. But when I'm using the Garmin, you have to have Spotify or one of the music apps. And I never started with that. So I found it to be a little bit safer now in my older years to run without music because I really get into my music. I zone out like a lot of people do. And I find that, especially if I'm doing trail runs, I need to be focused on the road ahead of me so I don't trip and fall. All right. So the last thing I want to close with is just letting you know, you don't have to be an Olympian to do this. You can start off like with the Jeff Galloway method, walking completely, and then just add a little bit of running, and then gradually increase that running ratio. Listen to your body. Your body is this great feedback machine. It's going to tell you everything you need to know. We used to do the Jane Fonda thing of go through the burn, run for the burn, work out until it hurts. But no, not so much anymore, because if you do that, then you have a higher risk of injury. And your body, if you listen closely to it, will tell you exactly how much you need to be doing, how fast you need to be going, how far you need to go or want to go. And it's all about enjoying a better quality of life. This is not to be first, second, or third in my age group, although that's a lot of fun. But it's about having so much of an improved quality of life based on what some of our parents and their generation had to go through, because they just didn't know that food can really be powerful medicine, and that motion is lotion, motion is potion, and just keep moving, whatever it is you do. I have been going to physical therapy because I had some hip issues just from sitting too long. It's never about running that does me in. but I go to physical therapists just for a tune-up to make sure I'm doing the right exercises for the right period of time in whatever phase I'm in. And so I want to make sure that you enjoy a quality of life that is fun for you and that you find something that interests you to keep you in motion, whatever that is, biking, swimming, walking, so many different things that you can do. And the more you can get outside, the better mood you'll feel as well. I'm going to be offering a tiny course about my daily vegan routine that keeps me fit and active at 72. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss that when it comes out. I'm working on it now. Just a little tiny course so that all of these things that have been running around in my head about running and walking and being fit in your senior years can be meaningful and important for you as well. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you and hope to see you in the next one. Until then, I gotta run.